Humans are one of only a handful of species that go through menopause. In almost every other species, the female dies once she can no longer reproduce. The reason we don't? The older woman is too valuable to lose. In part 2 of our conversation with Anna Butterworth, we meet the post-menopausal visionary, an aspirational figure the products haven't caught up with yet, and the uninformed endurer, the woman the wellness industry keeps forgetting. Then we get into why climate change is about to disrupt menstrual regularity, why VC models are stunting women's health innovation, and the one tool that transformed Anna's productivity as a founder and mother of almost 3.
Welcome back to Biohacking Eve, Health Optimization for Women with Judith Miller, where we shine a light on everything that will help you reach your best self as a woman, as unique and individual as only you can be. Live long and prosper, my friend.
The post-menopausal visionary, what's so interesting about her is I certainly thought in the early days of my women's health career, and actually prior to that, right, just as a woman growing up in the world, I have to say, I thought menopause was something that happened to women with white hair who were 80 years old. I really didn't understand that this was something that happened much younger, and we had this long experience with it. And I certainly didn't see a postmenopausal woman as an aspirational vision, somebody that I would like to grow up to be, right? There just wasn't that cultural experience for us growing up. And that's really shifting. And the postmenopausal visionary is the poster child of that, right? She's in her late 50s, perhaps up to 70, 75 years old. She is super content and in control, right? She feels powerful. She feels free. She has lived a long and full life. She is confident in herself, and she wants to bring her experience personally and professionally, culturally, socially. She wants to bring that to her community, to the people around her, and act as a mentor, not in a direct mentorship sort of way, but act as this powerful, aspirational person that we can all look up and aspire to be one day. And she's a really exciting individual that I'm so happy that we're seeing emerge. We've seen a little bit of this with the iris apfels, and it's still novel, but we're going to begin to see this broad strokes, particularly as people age in a natural, graceful way. Pamela Anderson is one of my favorite people on the planet, and she wears no makeup. She's had no work done. She is aging gracefully, and she really wants to make sure that she's bringing her lived experience to everyone around her, which is just incredibly powerful. This postmenopausal visionary is really at ease with herself. She prioritizes slow living, restorative movement, creative expression, nature. She blends her lifestyle with purpose and pleasure. So she participates in the community. She really pushes things forward. She's cultivating a circle of women that she mentors or is mentored by. They all uplift each other. The way that she engages with the world around her, she really invests in wellness products. She advocates for women's health in the workplace and community. She travels a lot, engages in purposeful aging narratives, and really invests time in intergenerational connections. She's just a really exciting person to begin to emerge. What I think we don't understand necessarily is that humans are one of the only species to go through the menopause. It's just humans and a couple of species of whale, and that's it, right? In every other animal in the world, as soon as the female sex are unable to reproduce, they die. Humans go through the menopause because the older woman is so incredibly important to society that we have this experience where long beyond being able to reproduce, we're still there. And it's because of this experience that we can bring to culture, to the society, that means that we've been kept around for millennia, right? This is not a coincidence. We have to understand that older women are incredibly important to our culture and to our society, and the post-menopausal visionary really exudes that. We'll start with her pain points, though. So some of the challenges that she has at the moment are dryness. So skin and vaginal dryness are really big challenges in menopause. Still not a huge number of solutions that are designed specifically for that life stage. Still much younger, still lots of anti-aging stuff. It's not what she's interested in. She's not trying to defy age. She's trying to embody it. Muscle loss and disrupted sleep. So muscle loss is a really big problem in menopause, and we think a lot about cardio health and cardiovascular health, also incredibly important. But muscle loss can be really challenging, and osteoporosis is another big pain point of menopause and post-menopause. So making sure that we start working out in the right ways earlier. And this post-menopausal visionary is lifting weights. She understands that she needs to do those things. But environmental health factors are really impacting her. So she's a little bit more susceptible to things like toxins and pollution. They're all impacting her health and well-being and her longevity. So figuring out ways that we can extract those from her day-to-day life are going to be incredibly important. Although we're seeing this shift, she's still feeling a little bit invisible as she ages in professional and public places. She's doing everything she can to counteract it, but broad strokes outside of her immediate community, she's still feeling a little bit invisible. So finding ways that we can uplift and support her will be incredibly important. Although she's tech-enabled and she likes digital tools, she really wants something that goes beyond basic symptom management. She's having a complex range of experiences and she needs something that's specifically designed for her. Right now, all of these tools are still designed for much younger women, not building out for her experiences. We're still seeing this culture of youth and this culture of anti-aging, and she's doing everything she can to buck that trend, but there's still this residual challenge that she's experiencing, and she's doing everything she can, but we all need to be doing that as well, understanding her value as an individual and as our post-menopausal visionary. What she's looking for in terms of tech and product preferences: evidence-led health technologies that address the root causes of post-menopausal symptoms. So we're still masking symptoms, we're still trying to treat symptoms rather than root causes, and that can be a really challenging thing. She doesn't want to spend too long with complicated technologies. She wants minimalist and intuitive digital tools that enhance her well-being without her having to spend too much time tracking and inputting. She wants to spend time in nature. She wants to spend time with her family, in her community. And she wants longevity-focused products that support her mobility, cognitive clarity, sleep quality, and metabolic health without too much disruption to her everyday life. She wants the human touch. She wants expert guidance. She wants symptom check-ins, but she wants it to be something that is relatively light touch and allow her to support a lifestyle. Again, we've got lots of guidance here on how you can talk to her, how you can position your brand and your product, how you can meet her needs in a way that is meaningful to her. In terms of products and services, there are lots of interesting ways that we can think about strength and vitality through hybrid programming that combine metabolic training, strength training, hormonal optimization, all those sorts of things in order to give her this really interesting, holistic, combined solution. She's also looking at ways that she can use her experience. So visionary leadership opportunities, immersive coaching experiences, future thinking and archetypal psychology, and strategic leadership development. All of those sorts of things will be ways that she can utilize her experience in meaningful ways in the community and in the workplace, looking at ways that we can listen to her more, ultimately. And then we're really excited about the way that sort of at-home longevity will be dealt with. The home health suites, at-home biomarking diagnostic systems that can look at your bone health, that can look at inflammation, metabolic longevity, whether or not you're integrating HRT, all of those things will be much more, there'll be at-home tools that we'll start to see going forward, and I'm very excited about. And then finally, looking at structures, as we talked about, there's this focus on, we're still being very focused on youth and anti-aging, and using structures and cultural developments, we can start to bring the brilliant, vibrant women into our everyday lives. So looking at intergenerational mentorship frameworks, inclusive well-being environments, looking at the wisdom workforce models, and integrating postmenopausal health into our long-term care pathways will all be really vital in building structures that really support our postmenopausal visionary. So finally, the 4 archetypes that we've looked at are a couple of key themes that thread through all of them is they're empowered, they're comfortable advocating for themselves, they are educated and aware of what's happening, and they're actively looking for solutions to support them through their menopausal journey. Now, there is a really key consumer that doesn't really have any of those things. The uninformed endurer, she has not been fully educated on her health and well-being. She's not been tracking her cycle for decades. In fact, what she's been doing is often masking a lot of her experiences as a woman through hormones. Perhaps she's been on the pill to mask difficult periods or painful, heavy periods. She is not hyper aware that her emotional dysregulation, her poor sleep, her cognitive challenges, she's not super aware that those are being driven by her hormones. And she's feeling a little bit confused. She's feeling a little bit overwhelmed and ashamed sometimes of those experiences that she's having. And she's never really felt super comfortable talking about her health and well-being with her family or her friends. It's just not something that comes up. And I think in the women's health space particularly, we often forget about her. We're so used to being in this little bubble of women who understand their health and are looking for solutions and want this technology and want to build something better, that we often forget about this uninformed endurer and this person that we need really to support through education and hand-holding first. So although she's in the workplace, she has a family, she's got a lot of work and responsibilities at home and professionally, but her body is changing, her experiences are changing, she feels very different, and she often feels very confused by these things and she doesn't really know what to do. She often ignores or masks her symptoms with things like caffeine and alcohol and painkillers, as we all do, right? And is not spending the time to really look at what the root causes are. And that's not a criticism on her. She just was never given the tools to do that. And she sometimes feels a bit embarrassed discussing symptoms. It might be from incontinence to brain fogs to sleeplessness. It can feel very difficult and it can feel it's exhausting to be masking these things and just trying to manage and deal in the world, which adds an extra layer as well. So we really want to make sure that we're still building for this uninformed endurer going forward, because she often gets forgotten about, I think, particularly by the women's health industry. Some of her biggest pain points, I don't think it's going to be that hard to understand what her pain points are, but she feels very overwhelmed. There's a lot of contradictory health information. She doesn't really know where to start or where to begin, even just knowing the sorts of things to Google, right? To search for. We take for granted now that we are a little bit more informed and a little bit more educated, that we understand the sorts of questions that we need to be asking. But even just that is an incredibly privileged place to be. So even knowing the sorts of challenges, even knowing the kinds of questions to ask your GP can be very difficult if you haven't been educated in that way before. So often digital tools can feel a little bit too complex or expensive. Maybe she feels like they're not for her, they're not built for her, and quite often they're not really. She needs tools that are easily accessible, and she needs to understand the types of treatment options that exist, or the types of things that she should be thinking about, even knowing what is normal and what is not normal, what is manageable, what's not manageable, what can be treated, what can't be treated. All of these things, she really needs support understanding. So what she's looking for are really simple, beginner-friendly tools that have very clear instructions, very little jargon. They're affordable. She's not yet prepared. She's never spent a huge amount of money on her health and well-being. She's not an indulger, right? Her family and her friends and her community, they always come first. So making sure that we have really low barrier digital health solutions, low barrier affordable symptom solutions, really easy to implement into her lifestyle through nutrition and supplementation as well. All of these things need to be private. They need to be stigma-free. She doesn't necessarily want to be talking about it with her friends and family, but she needs to be able to, we want to make sure that she knows that these can be solved and we can help her, right? So looking at retail-based solutions where she can pop into her local store, and it's very low barrier to entry. It's not something she needs to search around for ages. She understands they're in spaces that she already frequents and in places that she trusts. So these are going to be really important. And again, we've got lots of information here on how you can meet her where she already is. So what that looks like are things like beginner-friendly menopause starter kits. So this is really easy to understand education tools, symptom tracking, very basic supplementation. It doesn't have to be hyper-personalized. You know, we talk a lot about personalization and prevention when it comes to the latest innovations in women's health and where this is going. While, yes, personalization and prevention are going to be incredibly important, making sure that we have lots of generic tools that can actually scale very cheaply and very easily and can reach people in lower socioeconomic communities that don't have the access to personalization, that don't have access to DNA tests and trackers that will track you 24/7. Making sure we build a lot of generic solutions are going to be really important as well. This also looks at micro interventions, small accessible products for immediate relief that are discreet and she can access and she can have in her purse and she can get in her local pharmacy. Those sorts of things are also going to really change the game for her. Making sure that we have human-led tools as well. She might not necessarily feel as comfortable dealing with digital technologies and she wants to hear from individuals. Nurse-led, doctor-led interventions and ultra simple symptom trackers. Now, when we're thinking about how we can build structures that support her, again, discretion is incredibly important. But as we start to see workplace benefits start to integrate menopause, she might not even be thinking about the menopause as an impact for her. So looking at ways that we can build education through generic conversations, through generic workshops will be really important. And that includes anything in the workplace and anything in the community. It shouldn't necessarily be driven by menopause as a core factor because it might not be something that she's even considering. And what is really key here is upskilling our primary care teams as well. So she is likely to go to her GP before she is likely to go to the internet for solutions. And what she's going to the GP for might be symptoms that she isn't relating to the menopause. It's up to the GPs to then understand where these symptoms are coming from and what these root causes are. So making sure that we're upskilling our primary care team and also looking at the ways that we can support each other peer-to-peer as well. So local community peer-to-peer support groups will be ways that she can feel seen, heard, without it being too much of an impact on her day-to-day life.
Fantastic. Well done. You ready for the curveball
Go on, yes,
questions?
do it.
All right. So what are 3 things that you wish your colleagues and or clients would know that you believe would really move the needle in your field? Are there any itches that you would like to scratch, in the sense you just get frustrated about, like, if people knew that, it would make such a difference?
The biggest one for me is that we're still looking at solving point solutions. So we've talked a lot about products and services here that will solve the needs of these individuals. But what I think the root of all of this comes down to across the board in women's health is building tools that serve us from our first period right the way through to post-menopause. We have an incredibly complex range of experiences, and everything is impacted and underpinned by our hormonal fluctuations. So understanding hormones, understanding our menstrual cycle, how it begins, how we get pregnant, how it impacts us through pregnancy, post-pregnancy, through perimenopause, through post-menopause, what all of those different impacts are and how they impact us individually, what the comorbidity factors are. That is fundamental to all of this, right? It's all very well building a digital tool for a post-menopausal visionary, but what we need to understand is that there is this underpinning of hormonal fluctuations that still hasn't been rigorously tested. We still don't have enough clinical data on it. And the information that we do have is still a little bit too generic. It's not intersectional, and it's not building in factors that will be impacting us going forward. Things like environmental, even climate change, the global warming, increasing the global temperature by 1 degree will actually impact women much more significantly than men. This is turning into quite a few different things. But ultimately, the main thing is understanding hormones, understanding how going forward, the climate factor is going to impact women more significantly than men, And then the third one, I think, is the fact that we have incredible talent across the women's health industry, but we are all being stunted by lack of investment. And it means that we need alternative forms of funding, because VC funding is actually stunting the industry and is not allowing us to grow sustainably. And it's making it very difficult for us to build this holistic, all-purpose solution. We need to be looking at this differently.
This is interesting. So I did an earlier episode precisely around the VC funding, because if you say the typical pitch is something like 10 minutes, but if it takes you 9 minutes to actually explain what the problem is to, a male audience who just doesn't have that lived experience, that makes it very difficult. Actually, tell us a bit more on the environmental factors you mentioned, global warming.
So there are a couple of things that really impact women specifically. So on global warming and the increased heat, obviously in menopause, you'll have hot flushes. That's very clear. It can impact fertility. It can also impact brain fog, and it will impact, we're actually moving towards a future where through things like the climate crisis, PFAS and toxins, the menstrual cycle is much less likely to be regular. So as we're putting a lot of research into understanding our menstrual cycles now, they're actually very likely to change over the next 10, 20, 30 years and be much less regular, which will create a whole other range of factors and challenges from a health and well-being, from a fertility perspective, and from a menopausal perspective as well, but across the board.
Okay, that is very interesting, because I don't think anyone's linked global warming to fertility
Oh,
issues.
yeah.
Very interesting. But it makes sense, right? If you have more toxins, that will have all sorts of endocrinological impacts. And then obviously whether it's menopause, whether it's fertility. Okay, super interesting. So what is the book or books you've given most as a gift and why? Or alternatively, what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life and why?
So easy. Invisible Women, Unwell Women, are the two, right? They're the ones that I always say whenever anyone talks about it. Have you read Invisible Women? Have you read Unwell Women? Those are the 2 big ones. I always give them. You can't work in this industry without reading them. I don't think you can live in this world without understanding it. Those are my 2 big ones for sure.
Interesting. And what purchase of £100, dollars, euros or less has most positively impacted your life in the last, say, 2 to 3 years on recent memory?
What purchase?
So this could be something very personal. This doesn't have to be to do with femtech.
I run my own business. I am a mother of 2, almost 3, under 4 and a half. My time is incredibly stretched, and I need to make sure that every single minute of my day is utilized as effectively as possible. So integrating, this is going to sound very on brand, but integrating a productivity tool that is based on my menstrual cycle was by far the biggest impact I had the biggest impact on my productivity and on my ability to use my time as effectively as possible. The one that I use is Phase, and it has been unbelievably brilliant. It meant that I was able to block out time for those really boring admin tasks, make sure that I'm doing my pitches on my most communicative and powerful days. And it really just made structuring my business practice, structuring my lifestyle in a way that I could make sure that I was maximizing each day. It changed my life. Now I'm pregnant, I can't use it right now. I'm using it again, I can't wait.
So on that, we actually did an episode with Maggie McDarris, who's the founder of Face.io, so I highly recommend that. So she talks about, these different cycle phases, but how you actually harness them, because contrary to popular belief, you don't have 2 good weeks, 2 shit weeks, but you can actually do something with the shit weeks.
Exactly.
Which I thought this is really interesting. So I highly recommend that. The same question for £1,000 or less. So anything that has, what is the thing that has, or doesn't have to be a thing, physical thing, what has most positively impacted your life that is a spend of less than £1,000, dollars, euros or less?
I don't spend any money. I don't.
That's also a valid answer. Fantastic.
I've had 3 kids.
So
I'm my 3rd child. I don't spend any money on myself.
What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? This could be an investment of money, time, and energy.
Moving into women's health. When I first started at LV 10 years ago, I was not expecting a career in women's health. I wanted to work on a tool where you could play computer games with your vagina, right? I thought it was just such a cool idea. I had no interest in the gender data gap. I had no interest in the gender health gap, but that's where I learned about it and I became completely radicalized in this mission of improving women's health. And so by far the best investment I've ever made of my time has been pushing the needle and changing the game in women's health. And I feel like we've done a lot of work up to now. The way the women's health industry has changed over the last 10 years is mind-blowing. And I do feel like I've had a hand in that. And I feel I've done my little piece there. And I look forward to spending the rest of my life changing it more and making it even better.
Awesome. And what is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love?
Any piece of culture to do with Mormons, I will consume. Absolutely anything. Every documentary, every show. And I know Mormons have become very popular in the last 3 years. This is something that I've been a bit obsessed with since my teens. So.
This is not an answer I've heard before, so thank you for broadening my horizon.
Anything, grill me on anything to do with Mormons and I will. History, current affairs, you name it, I've got it in the bank.
Fantastic. Okay. And what are you working on at the moment, and or what is the next exciting breakthrough that you can see coming?
What I'm working on at the moment, we've got a big roster of reports coming this year. A couple have already been published and we've got a few more coming out this year. So just really excited to work on those, and obviously my growing family as well.
And we'll add the links, not to the family, but to
you
the
won't find them
reports,
anywhere online.
to the show notes. Fair enough. All right. And who would be your perfect sidekick in your work? This could be someone past or present, real or imagined.
I've got my perfect sidekicks already. My team are brilliant. And this is the first time I was lucky enough this year when I went on maternity leave to be able to hand over and delegate to my team. And it has been the biggest, that was probably one of the biggest things. If you want to talk about investment, investing in my team was probably certainly the biggest one that changed my life. Being able to, I didn't take a maternity leave, but being able to pull back a little bit, at least from client-facing work, and just hand over to my team was really great.
Do you know what strikes me when I ask that question to men? They're like, oh, you know, Marcus Aurelius and, I don't know, Tim Ferriss and all the rest of it. And the women always thank their team. I find that very, very interesting. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for joining me on this transformative journey. Your presence in this community is truly valued. Now, you may not realize it, but your words hold immense power. They have the ability to reach others who may benefit greatly from the wisdom shared here. If you found value in what you heard, I kindly ask you to take a moment to subscribe to Biohacking Eve, leave a glowing review on your preferred podcast platform, and share Biohacking Eve with your friends and family. Your support helps spread the message of health optimization for women far and wide. Lastly, I want to express my gratitude to you for investing in yourself. By prioritizing your well-being, you serve as an inspiration to others. I'm eagerly looking forward to bringing you many more exciting episodes, and thank you for being a vital part of our community. Live long and prosper, my friends. The Biohacking Eve Health Optimization for Women podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be substituted for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of the healthcare professionals for any such conditions. In addition, the information on this podcast does not constitute investment or financial advice.